So this is a Weebly. Um, a lot of people do use websites or alternate means to present. I know that Ed Finney is presenting on Nearpod right now and talking about how to select a specific kind of presentation platform. But this is going through all of them. Weebly is one of two website platforms that I generally work with when teachers are learning how to put their stuff online and work a bit more with blended learning and that sort of thing. Google Sites is the other one. Google Sites, if you're Google Apps for Ed School, is super accessible to kids and very easy to integrate with all the things that you might put on there. But Weebly, the big feedback and difference between Weebly and Google Sites is that Weebly is a little more interface friendly. People can manipulate it a bit more and make it look more polished rather than just very functional, as with the Google site. I wanted to show you a couple of things. Brian was the one that designed this website, the one who's doing the back channel chat right now. He put a link to today's meet, so if you have any questions about this or anything else, you can still talk to him. And I'm just going to go through the website, which is what I would probably do on a presentation if I were using a site for that purpose. I'm also going to unmute everybody since there are 8 of us. So if you have any questions, you can just ask them. So to present from a website, I just kind of talked about these two. I'm going to click onto a website that I used for a presentation a couple of years ago when I was talking about blended learning in CSS. Oh. And something like this in the classroom. You might have this on a daily basis or like on a unit-wide basis, but for a conference presentation, what I did was have a little do now with a Google form. You can see how it's sort of integrated straight into the page. And then what I did was show a tech tool. This is called ThingLink, if you're not familiar. So ThingLink on this page, we were able to give a lot of information and a lot of ideas in one spot. So you can see that there's some icons that give information about blended learning, which was the topic, some polls, some links to videos, YouTube videos, and that sort of thing. So instead of trying to just go through a slideshow, what we did was share the tiny URL with people so that they could go through this on their own, at their own pace, and basically go through what we were trying to model, which was a blended learning environment. So that is just one example of going through and using a website as a splash page. A big advantage for this is that people can go through your presentation at their own pace if you feel that's appropriate. They can also throughout the presentation that you might reference. So I did, like I said earlier, I did also print out some of the materials for them to use right up front because a lot of people just feel more comfortable with paper copies. So next piece I was going to go over today was presenting from slides, which is what we were doing just before. A lot of people certainly go through this. One nice thing about Nearpod and Google Drive slides is that you can share them immediately. You can also print them out. So you can give people access to a variety of things all at once so that they can read through and then not worry about writing everything down and whatnot. Big thing what we're trying to stress too today is like thinking about how you implement these things in your classroom rather than standing and delivering through just a regular presentation. What are the things that you would ask kids to do? If you're talking about content or a skill, how would you potentially implement it in the same way? So for instance, going to that website, when I'm in my classroom, I generally, if I'm having the kids go online, have them all go to one spot for that day's lesson, whether it's on this or if it's on an LMS, a learning management system. But what we were trying to do was basically model for the presenters what it is we wanted them to learn that day. So some of the things you've seen today already. Go to the next piece, which is ease of access. So something that we use a lot during webinars, and something that really helps to streamline the conference is URL shorteners. So a few of those big ones are Bitly and tinyurl.com. It's super easy to take a Google Doc or anything and shorten the URL so it's really easily accessible. Thinking about communication with the people in your presentations, this is a super simple way to deliver information and content so they can walk away with it. So they're not just walking away with a handout. So they have something to move away with so that they can come back to it and engage in it again. QR code generator, that's really more for people on the move if they're up and around during your presentation, or what I've seen a lot of people do is put it on the door outside the presentation so that, I mean, if the goal is to disseminate your information, the trying to get people that information, even if they're not coming into your presentation, I know is always a goal of mine. So putting a QR code on the outside can be really helpful if that's one of your goals. The last big bit before we sort of open the floor to people in terms of the way that they make their content accessible and any questions people have. Of course, the use of social media. If you don't already have a Twitter handle, it could be helpful to set up. A lot of people have them set up already. Of course, and a lot of people share a whole ton. Some people only share things around the conference, but I know that the people in the large organization of NCSS are trying to make the conference itself a little bit more user-friendly when it comes to social media. So that's one thing that the tech community will be doing as well at the conference, is we're going to have a table to help facilitate people setting those things up if they're not familiar with it. So if you need help with that, or if you know people who need help with that, you can direct them to us. It's also just super easy once you have a tiny URL to shorten it and put it into a in Twitter or into a Google form and send it out to people. So the last thing that is not on here that I wanted to bring up in terms of accessibility is something that we're going to be doing at the end of this webinar today, is to share everything from all the sessions, both the videos and any of the handouts, the presentations on Google Drive and on Dropbox. So what that looks like, if you've not used either one, simply going to be some people accessing Google Drive in a public file, which is super easy to do, or going through Dropbox and doing the same. So I will be sharing some links with that. If you look at the breakout session document, it has a couple of links to do that with in terms of what I would do to shorten those. Again, it's super simple. I'm going to demonstrate that now if you have not ever done it before. And in any of these, right, we're just shortening the URL. So I might type something like Tech Webinar Drive folder. And we're waiting on tinyurl, but then that would be something super simple to put on a final slide of a presentation so that people can access all of your documents. So that in terms of accessibility, part of the reason we push this is simply so that we don't have people running into presentations wanting to grab things and run out. If they know that they have access to your content, then it's more likely that they'll stay put and engage in it. And whatever the messages you're trying to convey, you travel all the way to where the national conference is, whatever the messages that you're trying to convey, you'll have more time to talk about that, discuss it, and really dig into it, rather than just standing and delivering and giving a talk about what you did, what your organization is, any of that. So you can see right here that this tiny URL is, and I'm going to put it in the chat, is available to access the Drive folder, for instance. So other than that, there is one thing I'm going to highlight and enlarge right now. So one big thing that NCSS has going for it in terms of accessibility and sharing of resources is they do have their platform, NCSS Connected, and that not only gives you access to the other communities and other people on Connected, but it also allows you to upload your files and see what files other people uploaded into one central location. So not all the presenters do that; they're not required to, but that's one place where you can share your content so that people can go and see it. So other than that, I think the big thing that I wanted to get from people who were part of this discussion today, I just sort of talked for 12 straight minutes. I wanted to know, in terms of accessibility, what other people have had success with in terms of sharing their content during or after their presentation. I believe everyone is off mute right now, but we wanted to open the floor to everybody else. So if one thing that might be helpful is to ask the question simply, what do people do to present, and what are the platforms we use? Similar to what Ed Fiddy's talking about right now, what are the things that people are using to present? If people could type those into the chat, it would be great. Or if I can hear some people, if you wanted to just share out loud. Okay. So a lot of people, of course, using PowerPoint and Keynote. Rosie. For the people who are using files downloaded, so the people who are saying PowerPoint and Keynote, is there something that you're doing specifically to share that after or even during the presentation? Or is there something that you do in your classroom even that you use to give that information to your kids? Some people who use DVDs. Yeah. Okay. So one person saying using SurveyMonkey after a session. We're using Google Forms today, website and DVD. To Elizabeth, did you? I don't know if you're. Let's see if you're. I think that you have audio right now. Did you want to speak to Pearl trees or to using wikis during a session and how that's helpful?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Pearl trees is a social bookmarking tool, much like Diigo, but it allows you to collect the websites in more of a pictorial form. So you can create almost concept maps around particular websites, and when you click on them, it goes right to the website. So when I'm presenting and I want to use a multitude of websites, that's an easy one. The other one, wikis, I tend to use wikis a lot just as almost a storage repository for all the information, and then I share the URL to that wiki so that my participants can have that.
Okay, great.
To answer Joanne, Pearl Tree, not quite like Symbaloo. Symbaloo gives you all the websites in that nice linear format. Pearl Tree's a lot more, almost, if you took Prezi and combined it with just websites, you would get that kind of concept map look to it. But it does allow you to click on wherever you want, and you're going to go to that particular website.
Great. Anybody have used anything else? Jacqueline, you say you use Prezi. Is that something you generally use at presentations, or do you use that in class? Or both? I don't know if she is able to speak. In terms of accessibility in general at the conference, does anybody have questions about or want us to find out more about the internet or anything with regard to accessibility? Or is there anything I didn't cover that you thought would be covered during this breakout session?
Can you speak at all to accessibility for our participants who might need special accommodations? Is there anything we should think about, such as closed captioning, image captioning?
So I know that there is, I believe there is an option if you go through the conference to get help with closed captioning, but I think that's definitely an issue I'll bring up with NCSS to see, and the people running the conference specifically. So you said closed captioning and screen capture?
No, closed captioning and image describing. I'm just thinking about all the different alternative modalities some people might use. And I know that with most of our presentations, they tend to be very oral.
Yes. In your, have you presented before?
Yes.
What are some of the things that you do generally to increase accessibility to people who need it?
Well, I probably don't do enough. I have done closed captioning. I provided written material that's going to emulate what I'm presenting. Just the idea that they can access the materials that I'm speaking about tends to help. I haven't really figured out a good way to help those who are visually impaired in the presentations unless the conference provides some sort of interpreter or something like that at that point.
Okay. So I think that is, that's certainly a question I'll bring up with them to see what services are available. I know with my experience in the past just in terms of the technology station, it's all just about hardware projectors, and they contract that out. But I think that finding that potentially getting something even like headphones for those who are hard of hearing, so that they could potentially be given an opportunity to go to presentations and access them a bit more too.
Great idea.
Does anybody else have questions about that, or think that this was about something else entirely, that they have questions they would either answered or that I'm sure I can find the answers to afterward? There's somewhere about the LCD. Someone just asked about the LCD projectors being provided. When you get your confirmation email from NCSS, they should also send you an email about whether or not you want to rent projectors. Personally, I think it's really expensive what they charge. I was just talking to some of the other presenters about one year when my wife and I were presenting, and we forgot a projector and we thought someone was going to give it to us. She's a good talker, so we were able to get one for free, but usually it's like $300 a day of. So I would definitely bring your own if you did not sign up, but I would check the prices. Trying to haul your own LCs is tough. I think that is definitely an issue. Obviously, people want projectors, so I wonder what the issue is in terms of just providing them. And I have been to very few sessions where people don't use an LCD projector, so I'm going to ask about that.
It might be interesting if NCSS could provide some sort of open forum for presenters where if you're coming and you're bringing a projector and you're willing to share, there could be some sort of, I want to call them ride sharing of projectors.
Uber.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think that goes to what we were talking about when people are, people are very open to helping each other at these conferences, more so than I mean, I also live in the New York area and work in the Bronx, so people are a little less, sherry out here sometimes. But I've always been pleased at conferences how people are willing to go the extra mile to help each other out, because everyone knows we're there for a good reason, and we're all there to learn, to bring back to our kids. So I think that making it a little more formal would be a really good idea, and just to see if people are willing to hand those off. So great. Okay. Do anybody have any questions about? I might have already asked this about those various things I talked about. I think I'm still sharing my screen. So the various websites. I know it's a lot of different things going on, but it sounds like a lot of people have used them before. Or if anybody has any other questions or comments about just the accessibility in New Orleans. Cell phones work in the conference center. That's a good question, Kim. Cell phones at the conference center. I think that finding that ahead of time obviously would be very helpful to most people. I know that people have tried to stream or open up like a hotspot on their phones before, and it's been a problem with so many people trying to do that. Kim, can you talk a little bit more about the EPR website? I think she might just be chatting as well. So I think she's going to talk to that. Does anybody else know anything about what she's referring to with the EPR website?
Nope.
Okay. So I know that we're going to sort of plug our sessions at the end, but one thing that we're trying to also support right now is the unconference at the general conference. Last year was the first year they had an unconference. So, and what the goal with that is trying to make it open to the general public. Actually, obviously people pay to go to the NCSS conference, but the sort of spirit of the unconference is to allow people to just show up, vote with their feet, determine what people want to learn based on the knowledge that's in the room and that sort of thing. So that'll be something that we'll be tweeting out a lot about in terms of just one of the things that's going to be happening in New Orleans. So I think Kim brought up a website for us to take a look at. Okay. Oh, and she also brought up Plickers. If you haven't seen Plickers, that's one also pretty easy piece to increase accessibility and interaction in the classroom. And that's really easy to download, easy to implement in terms of printing out cards for the class. You can sort of see it in the website here. Okay. Great. Are there any other big questions about accessibility or anything at all? I know this was a little bit short, but. Okay. So I wanted to just quick plug the sessions that we have for the conference in New Orleans, and then we'll of course be able to answer any follow-up questions that you have moving forward. The presentations we have, one is a technology showcase for social studies teachers. So all the things that you are all excited about in terms of sharing, whether it is the websites you all shared today, whether it is like something like Pearl Trees or Symbaloo, whether it is something that is Google Drive, something that is really transforming the way that you teach in terms of technology. Every year we hear a lot of things about the hot button tools that year, and a lot of them just sort of come and go. What we're really interested in at the Technology Showcase is showing things that people have used to transform their instruction. I know that Google Drive for my classroom has been pretty revolutionary, just using things like Google Forms, using Google Scripts to give automatic feedback to students and communicate with families much more easily on my own time and in my own way has been really helpful. So things like that. The second thing that we'll be doing at the conference in New Orleans will be a technology town hall meeting. So that's more an open call for people to come and talk about how technology should be prioritized in NCSS and how it should be incorporated into the work we're doing, and should not necessarily just be something we talk about from time to time, but is in many ways a very important issue to talk about in our classrooms and in our communities. So we're going to use that opportunity to talk to everyone who comes out and say, what is the work that you want the technology community and NCS to do in the coming year with regard to technology, and whether that is addressing issues with social media and kids, whether it is, again, providing even more support with regard to connecting people over technology tools. It could be whatever people at that meeting decide will sort of set the agenda for the next year. And then, of course, we did mention a couple of times the Tech Connection Help Desk. So we'll be using that to connect people via social networking platforms, making sure they know where to upload their presentations, and being a little bit of a backup also to the general tech table that issues projectors and that sort of thing. So after we get off today, what I'm going to send out is all links to all these materials. Also, I'm going to follow up with some of the people who are in charge of planning the conference and ask the questions, certainly about accessibility with regard to disabilities and that sort of thing, but also the LCD projector issue. I know it comes up every year, but I think that crowdsourcing and being smarter about that would be very helpful to everybody. And then ask about the cell phone piece of the conference. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm also going to stay online till 4 to answer any questions people have individually. Are there any other questions about those things at this time? Okay. So what I just put on the screen right now is the survey for this webinar. Thanks for coming online with us today. It was our first shot at it, so we appreciate everyone who took time out today to come out and contribute, and also contribute to the conversation. Our email address is up there, and so is our Twitter handle. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone just asked a question on the back channel as well. If you want to go catch the tail end of the other breakout sessions, you can go to the tiny URL that's up on the screen right now, the tech webinar agenda, and you can log into those other breakouts as well.